Thank you so very much for this wonderful invitation. I've always loved your city, and I've been going through here for many years. I frankly became a little alarmed when I started seeing what's happening, what has happened in the northern hill country, north of San Antonio. And I hope that a city so unique as Castroville will learn the lessons that were not learned in many of the towns that have now become sprawling suburbs in the north of San Antonio. If I seem a little befuddled, there's several reasons. For starters, the Texas legislature is in session. And keeping up with those guys can be a problem sometimes. I also had an appointment with my ophthalmologist this morning. And so sometimes those situations can be as appointments with ophthalmologists can be as difficult as it is to spell the word ophthalmologist. Secondly, though, is that I do quite a bit of public speaking, and in my entire career, I have never been invited by the Chamber of Commerce before. Early on in my columnist career, the Greater San Antonio Chamber of Commerce labeled me as anti-growth. And on almost 20 occasions, their officers have demanded that my publisher fire me. So I hope that you don't wind up being seen by other chambers as, your invitation to me being seen as some kind of a betrayal to your brother chambers. I grew up, like I said, in Robstown, Texas, and later on I'm going to be talking about a chamber organization that I'm thinking of perhaps putting together myself. I was born in Robstown, Texas, and I'm part of that generation that grew up with the electronic media and the video media that so consumes all of the Western world today. Every Saturday morning I'd go to the Gulf Theater and watch kiddie shows. The Bang Bang Shoot 'em Up cowboy movies, Hopalong Cassidy and Roy Rogers and Gene Autry, and wonderful times that we had, cheering on these cowboy heroes, and in a much simpler time. After we got our first TV, I remember every day making sure that I watched Walter Cronkite and his soothing voice, who first I remember told us that this scraggly bearded guy from Cuba was a great guy, and then turned him into an incredible villain, when he didn't quite live up to the expectations. So it is a real pleasure to not only be here, and I hope, like I said, that you guys don't wind up as villains, but it is kind of an honor to be before so many Castrovillians. And I hope that you can maintain the character of your city, because it is such a jewel, for not just yourselves, but for the state of Texas. It would be criminal for this place to go the way of some of the towns that are north of San Antonio, where, for example, in Kerrville, there's a bunch of now what people up there call, cowboy quarries, and somehow they still manage to keep an agricultural tax exemption. I had one old elderly farmer complain to me, and he said, what are they harvesting, rocks? Is that a caliche farm? And that sort of thing kind of happens when you don't watch growth. Growth is a natural thing, I am not against growth. I've never been against growth. But let's not forget that growth is a wonderful thing. I mean, we all want to see our kids go from infants to toddlers to teenagers, and then get past those difficult years and finally start speaking civilly to us again. But we don't want to see our children grow morbidly obese. And that is the nightmare, I think, of every parent. Is it any different for communities to become morbidly obese? It can be very, very, very destructive to everybody. And I'm glad to see that so many people now are snapping to the reality that we are in the crosshairs of growth. South Texas, it's not just Castroville, it's not just the hill country. Right now, the second fastest growing city in the United States is Laredo. The 5th fastest growing city is McAllen, Edinburgh. Now, what is bringing all this growth? There's a bunch of factors that are playing into this. One is energy costs. As energy costs go up, and when they're split pretty much down the middle, developers walk in, do what they can as quick as they can, and leave. He says unity is the biggest problem with small towns. And I have been watching the goings on here in Castroville, and I certainly hope that you're able to resolve it one way or another, because you have something far too valuable to waste. I know in small communities, I grew up in one, people sometimes wish, you know, to have a richer array of eateries, a richer array of retailers, different watering holes, you know, and entertainment venues. And the temptation to just give in to all this stuff is really great. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people here who would love to see a Walmart competing with a Target. You know, but look closely, you know, are people going to come from other cities to Castroville to go to the Walmart or the Target? Of course not. One of the neatest parts, I studied some, I never did get my degree in it, but I did study some urban studies, studied in an urban studies program. And one of the things that I've noticed a long time ago is the human scale, particularly of the older part of Castroville. That is not, the density is almost perfect, you know? The houses aren't too close together, but they're close together enough that people can walk to each other's house, that you can know your neighbors instead of being in places like, you know, the suburbs that are now encroaching coming west. This is a wonderful thing to be able to have. And